The U.S. and Israel bombed Iranian gas fields that made up 70% of the nation's gas supply. Iran's military spokesperson said, "You attacked our infrastructure. Now your infrastructure, energy and gas facilities will burn to ashes at the first opportunity." Qatar Energy announced extensive damage in the Ras Laffan complex. They said, "We will lose 12.8 million tons of liquefied natural gas annually for a period of 3 to 5 years, which is equivalent to 17% of Qatar's liquefied natural gas exports." The annual revenue loss from the 3 damaged facilities is estimated around $20 billion. We may be forced to declare a force majeure in long-term contracts lasting up to 5 years for the supply of LNG to Italy, Belgium, Korea, and China. 4 days ago, I put a warning out on my Twitter, and I discussed this point here on my YouTube channel. You guys all remember, probably, we covered it live. I wrote this: warning, if Iran's energy infrastructure is targeted, Iran will flatten the world's largest LNG production complex in Qatar into a parking lot. A quarter of the world would be plunged into darkness and cold. Now, that was 4 days ago. Yesterday, we saw the U.S. and the Israelis launch attacks on Iran's major gas fields in the south of their country. And that was a red line for them. They made it very clear that that was a no-no. And my sources told me that this is exactly what was going to happen. That if their gas facilities, if their gas fields were targeted, that Iran would respond by hitting the Ras Laffan gas complex in Qatar, which supplies, the majority of the gas to the world. And that's exactly what actually happened. So, told you so. Not that I think any of you doubted that, but I'm sure the Zionists were thinking, oh, they would never do that, right? That's insane. They would never do that. Well, they think it's just as insane that you are doing this, that you're targeting their gas facilities. The U.S. and Israel bombed Iranian gas fields that made up 70% of the nation's gas supply. And when this happened, Iraq, neighbor, yes, different country, Iraq, they lost all of their energy imports from Iran immediately, just like that. Everything was cut off. And during the hotter months, I must say that Iraq does have a lot of very serious electrical issues. I was in Iraq at the end of last year for Arbaeen. I was in Karbala. I was in Najaf. I was in Baghdad. It's extremely hot, and they do not have good electricity. They rely on the Iranians to supply them and aid them with electricity, especially during those hot months. Immediately when this attack took place, 3,200 megawatts of energy were immediately lost by the Iraqi government. The Ministry of Electricity in Iraq announced that. And the Trump administration was really fearful about the fact that this attack on Iran's gas facilities took place. We got this message from Trump. Israel, out of anger for what has taken place in the Middle East, has violently lashed out at a major facility known as the South Pars gas field in Iran. A relatively small section of the whole has been hit. The U.S. knew nothing about this particular attack, and the country of Qatar was in no way, shape, or form involved with it, nor did they have any idea that it was going to happen. Unfortunately, Iran did not know this or any of the pertinent facts pertaining to the South Pars attack and unjustifiably attacked a portion of Qatar's LNG gas facility. No more attacks will be made by Israel pertaining to this extremely important and valuable South Pars field unless Iran unwisely decides to attack a very innocent, in this case, Qatar, in which instance the U.S. of America, with or without the help or consent of Israel, will massively blow up the entirety of the South Pars gas field at an amount of strength and power Iran has never seen or witnessed before. Now, obviously, this is ludicrous. This is insane. This is not what the reality of the situation is. Obviously, the U.S. did, in fact, know about this attack. Obviously, the U.S. coordinated this attack. Obviously, Israel could not have carried out this attack without not just the knowledge being shared with the United States because they share all these command and control centers for their air forces, and even people who are, countries that are tangentially involved, like the United Kingdom in this conflict. But we know for a fact that they needed U.S. logistics to carry out this attack. Okay. 100% the U.S. knew. Now, whether Donald Trump himself knew as he was sipping his Diet Cokes and he was eating his McDonald's burgers, I mean, of course, that's a question that should be answered. I doubt Trump actually knew, or maybe he did know. But it is without a doubt, 100% the U.S. military was aware that this was happening and aided in the attack. And in fact, we have news from Axios that actually, this is exactly what happened. A U.S. defense official confirmed that the Israeli strikes on South Par's gas facility in southern Iran were coordinated with the Trump administration. The only reason why Trump is coming out and saying this stuff, claiming that they had nothing to do with it, is because they don't want the smoke after they committed the crime, right? That's the saying, can't do the time, don't do the crime. Well, that's the whole PR strategy for the U.S. in this war. And that's honestly why I find this whole thing with like Joe Kent very weird. He resigns, he writes this letter, he blames everything on Israel, nothing on the U.S. Israel would not be able to do this without the U.S. If the U.S. just said, okay, Israel, you want to do these attacks and fine by us, but we're not going to be a part of it. First of all, Israel would be able to do very little damage to Iran. Second of all, they'd get clapped into non-existence. So, I find the whole thing a bit weird. And also, it's like, if you read the Pathways to Persia, the Brookings Institution 2009 white papers on how they could actually achieve regime change in Iran, what the official U.S. foreign policy should be from administration to administration moving forward regarding Iran, everything talks about the idea that, diplomacy, but diplomacy is a means to eventually get a war. And when that war comes, we're going to blame it all on Israel because that's how we're going to lessen the blowback for the United States and the U.S. interests in the region. Why do you think Iran is, they're hitting Israeli military infrastructure, military bases. They're hitting a lot of it. We're just not seeing the videos because there's so much censorship. But you look at the infrastructure in Israel and it's kind of, they're making it unlivable, right? But they're not blowing them into non-existence. They are doing that, however, to the American bases in the region and all of the U.S. financial assets, and in particular in the UAE. Why do you think that is? It's because they know where the head of the snake is. The head of the snake, regardless of what people say, the head of the snake is the Pentagon, it is the CIA, it is the U.S. State Department, it is the oil and gas firms, it is Wall Street, it is the major conglomerates that are going to make a lot of money off of this conflict, the multinational corporations. It is also the coalitions of these, not the smaller think tanks like the FDD, which, Joe Kent was discussing in his conversation with Tucker Carlson. These think tanks are very small. They are not as powerful as institutions like the Brookings Institution. They're not as well funded. They're not as historic. They don't have that legacy in the way that Brookings does. And they just don't have as much power. I mean, that's just what it boils down to. And this all falls perfectly in line with the idea that the U.S. is obviously behind all of this, but they're going to pawn off the blame to avoid the backlash. Now, Iran's military spokesperson said, you attacked our infrastructure and our energy infrastructure in the south. Now your infrastructure, energy and gas facilities will burn to ashes at the first opportunity. Your era of glory is over. Withdraw from the region or else. So the Iranians had put out this list of different targets that they were going to be hitting in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar. Obviously, we saw a lot of those places hit yesterday. We saw Saudi Aramco get hit very hard. In the first days of the war, we saw some warning shots fired at Saudi Aramco, right? Some things that burned a lot but didn't do a lot of structural damage. Well, yesterday we saw some bigger strikes on Saudi Aramco, direct from the gas fields in Riyadh that were hit tonight. So east of Riyadh, outside of the city a little bit, we saw a lot of this infrastructure getting hit in a very big way. Several, explosions you can see in this video. In another video, you can see a very large explosion taking place. These are U.S. assets getting hit in Riyadh as well. Some close-up images of it. Two of the gas facilities getting hit. Area energy fields getting hit. So that's in Riyadh. Now go to about 14 seconds in here. You see just massive explosions. You see how big it is. These videos are obviously filmed far away, so it's hard to really grasp what is taking place. But make no mistake about it, it is massive. Now, the big ticket item here, which is responsible for, the prices soaring to the heights that they are soaring to, were the attacks on the Ras Laffan gas facilities in Qatar. Qatar Energy announced extensive damage in the Ras Laffan complex. Iranian strikes also were hitting later in the night. Saudi Arabia again, Qatar again, Kuwait again. Kuwaiti oil refinery came under Iranian drone attacks. Qatar's official ministry announced the explosive Iranian strike damages just a few hours ago. They said 2 out of the 14 liquefied natural gas production units and 1 out of 2 gas to liquids facilities of ours were damaged in the recent attacks. So they didn't take out everything in the Iran South Pars gas facility. They did some damage, but they are going to do reciprocal damage. So if more attacks on Iran's gas facilities take place, one can only presume that there will be much larger attacks on Ras Laffan. They have the ability to do so. None of these attacks were stopped. They said, we will lose 12.8 million tons of liquefied natural gas annually for a period of 3 to 5 years, which is equivalent to 17% of Qatar's liquefied natural gas exports. That's not a small amount either. 17%, given the large supply that Qatar provides for the global needs of liquefied natural gas. The annual revenue loss from the 3 damaged facilities is estimated around $20 billion. We may be forced to declare a force majeure in long-term contracts lasting up to 5 years for the supply of LNG to Italy, Belgium, Korea, and China. So make no mistake about it. This is not just some, like we saw in the first days of the conflict. This is not a warning shot. This is not a virtue signal strike. This is a very, very damaging, explosive attack on Ras Laffan. We saw in the morning, Brent crude oil prices up 7%. Trading went up to 119. I think it peaked at. We saw $119 today per barrel. European gas prices surged by 25%. And then just a few hours ago, 24 hours later almost, more violent explosions targeting U.S. interests in the Kurd province of Saudi Arabia. Also, Iranian strikes on the headquarters of the U.S. Navy 5th Fleet in Bahrain. We saw, this was really big today. Haifa got absolutely obliterated. We saw attacks on the Haifa oil refinery. So a lot of oil and electrical infrastructure in Haifa came under attack. There was also military infrastructure which came under attack. The Bazan company, which is responsible for the major oil refining firm in Haifa, which was targeted, saw an 8% crash in stock value following today's Iran strikes. Here you can see some footage of the attack on the oil refinery in Haifa. There was very large fires, which I'd imagine are still not put out yet. That was burning quite a bit throughout the afternoon and evening hours. We also saw massive smoke plumes after an Iranian strike on energy stations in Haifa. This was another location which was hit a little bit later on. Vital energy infrastructure in Haifa. These are some more videos of the plumes of smoke. And Iran's foreign minister, Arakchi, he said Iran will exhibit zero restraint if our infrastructures are struck again. And we did see more attacks on Haifa tonight. I'd imagine that as the hours continue to chip away, there will probably be maybe a few more attacks on some of the energy infrastructure in the region, maybe in the UAE later tonight. We'll have to stay up to date. But as of right now, the big item here is obviously the attacks on Haifa, but far more so the attacks on Ras Laffan in Qatar. That is a really big problem, not just for the West, but the entire world. And Iran has the capability, as they've now exhibited, to create a lot of pain, a lot of damage. They don't want to do that. But the reason why they say they're doing that is because, of course, their gas infrastructure was targeted first. Their energy was targeted first. And they did not start this. They did not start this war. They did not start the energy infrastructure war. But they do have the capability to put an end to it all. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.